So, today we have CK Lin on My Corona. Welcome, CK.
Hi, Martin. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you. You are one of my oldest and dearest friends. Audiences may suspect that all my friends consist of men who have PhDs in bioengineering. And of course, you are, you are, if you want to go into your background a little bit, CK.
Sure.
I didn't make that up, did I?
No, you did not. So I believe I'm the third guest, right? Third or fourth. And I'm the second PhD biomedical engineering from UCLA. So
Yes, Kevin is just a master robotic builder. So
just exactly.
he's, I'm sure you've watched what is the Big Bang Theory?
I did not.
So that's a sitcom where they're all Caltech brainiacs, and they're all PhDs except for the one engineer who does who actually goes up in the space station, and they kid him that he's stupid because he's the one that doesn't have the PhD.
Right.
So,
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I would say is that for the people that actually have the degree,
Yeah.
the way we look at people with degrees is ultimately is what you do with it. So to us, degree is just letters after our name, but ultimately is what you do with it. I'm sure you feel that way as well.
Yeah. I've got my BA in economics helps me understand the world, but I don't do a lot of modeling, and I don't write any papers along those lines, but definitely helps shape my thinking, sometimes in a good way. So one of the things that's really interesting about your story is, how you came to this country and your thirst for learning and your journey. We've been friends for 12 years now. And just in the 12 years,
2006.
So that's 14. I can do advanced math. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's a long time. For some reason, I thought 2008, but no, 2006. You're right. Anyway, so tell us a little bit about what your early life and how you came to be such a student of everything there is to be a student of, which is how I relate to you.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, how far back? So I would say from the very, very young age, there's always been
after the womb, a little after.
Okay, got it. From the very, very young age, there is a huge thirst for learning. That was my sanctuary. So I'm raised Taiwanese, and in Taiwan, the way they teach their students is very much a Confucius-based learning. So we learn a lot of philosophical ideas from Confucius. And there's a phrase, it says, 书中自有黄金屋, means in books, there's houses of gold in it. Like that's the direct translation. And I really took that to heart. So ever since I was really, really young, there was a huge thirst to be inspired by inventors, scientists, engineers. And that was my solace. That was where I find my solace, and that's my sanctuary. So anytime I was bored, anytime I got reprimanded, anytime I feel lonely, I would just go to books. So that's the genesis of my curiosity, the genesis of my thirst for learning, for knowledge.
Awesome. So because of your background and just because you're great to have conversations with, there's quite a few things I want to talk to you about today. I do want to talk to you about like where you think this is going, and just maybe we can speculate about some ideas that can help our audience get prepared for not only getting through the current situation, but kind of get ready for what it's going to look like on the other side of this. But the first thing I really wanted to talk about is your community project that you're working on to help us. So why don't you give us a little bit about that?
Sure. So I think a lot of people who are sitting on the sidelines feel like, I wish there's something I could do, because we may not be able to develop vaccines or develop new drugs or develop new test kits to really help accelerate the or rather the slowing down, flattening the curve, slowing down the spread of this virus. And when we
Although soon it will be viruses, right? There'll be mutations in different versions. So
Oh yeah,
right
for
now there's
sure.
only the one.
If you actually go online and type in genealogy of coronavirus, you see literally this like tree of life, this spread of various strands all over the world. So that actually makes it really difficult to stop it, because you just you see the origin and you see the genealogy of the whole thing, and yeah. So right, viruses for sure. So, but when we focus on things that's outside of our control, it leads to psychological negative emotions like more anxiety or overwhelm because we can't control it, right? So what I wanted to do is to focus on things we actually do have control over, starting from not only just ourselves, but our family, but our community as well. So if we can, impact things on the global level, we can definitely impact and take care of people that's within our community. So CommunityStrong was born from that idea, in thinking that who are the most vulnerable populations that this COVID-19 virus is impacting? Well, the immunosuppressed, the immunocompromised, and the seniors, because they have the highest chance to, not recover from this. So what could we do to minimize their exposure to this virus? So the way we thought about is, well, we can deliver supplies and groceries to them contactless. So that way they're taken care of as well. So that was the beginning of this CommunityStrong project.
Okay. And so what different roles do you have in the project?
It's very simple. I would say people that need help, right? In this case, right now, we're focusing on the seniors. So the seniors will raise their hands and say, I need help. And they're the angels, the messengers, the people who will do essentially pickup and delivery. And then we are just acting as a logistical support in the middle.
Okay. When you say we are, who's we?
We, all the volunteers, the team from Kaizen, our men's group, and people who are stepping up to help. So we as a community strong community, will help coordinate the logistics between the two parties.
Well, as I'm thinking, listening to you, I'm thinking, thinking about some of our mutual friends. We have, our friend Judy, who we have in common, is someone who might be in the target group that shouldn't be going out and delivering, but she's amazing at logistics. And maybe there's folks who are seniors who can't, maybe they just be the recipient, but if they can man the phones, or they can man the computers and what have you, and help with the logistics, then they feel like they're helping other people as well. Maybe there's an opportunity for people.
Yeah, for sure. So there's many different ways that we can help. Let's just unpack that for a moment. So tactically, we could help with the errands, right? But at the same time, as the community grows, as we talked about a little bit before we started recording, is people predictably will feel lonely, given that they're, staying at home. We could do virtual lunches potentially, right? We could have different artists to do performances, to soothe the mind, soothe the psyche. We could
That makes
do.
sense. You have a lot of friends in the artistic community, so I could imagine
Exactly.
doing these impromptu concerts or what have you. Yeah, that's
right.
awesome.
And then there's predictably people need jobs, right? We can do job boards, but again, these are, if you think about Craigslist, there's a lot of different things that people need right now, but the focus that we want to focus on right now is tangible help, deliveries for seniors to start off, and then we may potentially branch out to some other things.
Okay. So where are you in the evolution of this? Or what is it you need to get this thing rolling?
Yeah. So right now, the way I envision, so right now we have a Facebook group. That's our communication medium.
Okay.
That's how we coordinate everything. And right now we're looking for angels volunteers in the SoCal area, because uh, the more angels we have, the more coverage you have to meet the demands of these seniors.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you can sign up through the Facebook group?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
And then after you sign up for the Facebook group, there's a little survey that you put in that you enter and say, hey, I'm a senior, you need help, and this is my zip code. And then we'll be in touch when there's an angel around your area. And if you are an angel and say, I'm an angel, this is my zip code, and there's some series of questions, selection questions on whether or not you are qualified. Some qualifying questions for you. Takes 3 minutes. And then after that, we'll just help coordination in the middle.
Okay, perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Oh boy, there's like 12 questions I want to ask you at once, but I'll try and be disciplined, which is a real problem for me. I think so basically you go on to the Facebook site, Facebook group,
Mm-hmm.
yes, and you first you sign up, you have an opportunity to say I need help, I need help with errands or what have you, or I can provide a service and I think I'm eligible, and you go through that process.
Mm-hmm.
Do you need any funds? Is there any money need?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Right now, let me say this. Right now, maybe not, because right now it's totally a volunteering effort. But
Right.
predictably, looking ahead 3 steps out, there will be people who need the help, but they don't necessarily have the money, the savings to pay for the things that they need. So for sure, I would anticipate we definitely need donations, patrons to help supply some of the basic needs of these people who need help, and or um, protective gears for the volunteers.
Okay. And so basically what you want people to do is go to CommunityStrong and participate, is what you're saying, and things will evolve as the situation evolves and you react to it.
Yeah, here's something I'll say to this. I think all of us can help, whether it's on the personal level, familial level, community level, um, global level, even, right? All of us can help giving where we are. I think it's just get connected with our heart to see, what if these people are my grandparents? What would I do? And if you can lend the help, whether it be, so there's a phrase in Chinese, 有钱出钱,有力出力, means if you have money, give money. If you have time, give your time. If you have expertise or special access to supplies, to medical, supplies, or groceries or things like that, give help there. I think all of us, the tagline, the reason why I named the project Community Strong is because I deeply believe that we are stronger when we all stand together. So,
All right. Well, that's awesome.
mm-hmm.
So let's take a look a little bit at what this is going to look like in the future. We've seen in some communities things are getting better, in some communities they're not. Definitely New York looks like it's getting. I have a good friend who's a doctor, and we're going back and forth today, and he's like, "Oh my God, New York's it's challenging." I guess from the point of view of a doctor, you'd be seeing the worst of it, right?
Yeah.
And it seems in LA, at least, how shall I put this? It's totally anecdotal. This is not scientific, but I have lots of friends in New York, and I know a bunch of them that have the virus, and I have even more friends and contacts in LA, and I only know of one who's got it. So definitely, from my perspective, which is admittedly non-scientific and skewed, it looks like LA is doing a lot better than New York. And where we started out, at least in the beginning, we had more cases. So just making things up, hypothesizing, which would be the fancy way of saying that. I think that one of the things that people hate about LA is how we're all stuck in our cars and everything's all spread out. And you've heard that LA is 100 suburbs in search of a city. Well, that's one place where it's actually helping us.
Mm.
Whereas if you live in New York City like I used to, you know that it's more of a hub and spoke, and it's so much denser, and certainly in Manhattan, everyone's on top of each other, and no matter almost how wealthy you are in New York, in Manhattan, you don't have a car, and so you've got mass transit and what have you. So it's in a lot of ways, New York's a great place to live, but it's also more challenging to do the social distancing
Yeah.
uh, in New York. So, but that's in the realm of speculation. But so looking at what it's going to look like on the other side, what do you see? What are some of the things that you see we're going to deal with in 1 month or 2 months, and we're going to wish we had this time to prepare. So what is it you think we should be preparing for?
Yeah, for sure. So you guys actually talked about it in the last few episodes that I watched,
Yeah.
and I would say that the future of work is going to change
Yeah.
drastically. The virtualization, the availability of different workforces, right? Because a lot of business is going to shrink back. That means a lot of people are going to be free agents. And that means they themselves need to rethink about how they will make a living, essentially. And also business can use this as an opportunity to hire free agents into the workforce, right? So there's that for sure. But on the individual level, I would say the part of what I do is I'm an executive coach for entrepreneurs, and especially on how do you make important and meaningful decisions during uncertain times. So that's essentially my specialty. One of the things I haven't heard people talk about is the importance of being engaged socially. We as human beings, social animals, want and need that social connection. And right now that's being a forcing function, is being taken away from us. Predictably, you will see a spike of more addictions, overindulgence, as well as a need for social connection. How do you actually manage that? How do you make sure that you still get that social connection that you naturally crave and want and desire? So we'll see a spike in, just generally speaking, how do you actually take care of mental health during this time?
Okay. So that's a tough question. What's the answer?
Certainly, I don't have an answer there, but what I'll say is, again, look at your sphere of influence, starting from yourself. What kind of rituals you have as a way to help you manage your own internal state? What kind of active compassion that you have, like a self-acceptance compassion practice you have? What kind of gratitude practice you have? And then what kind of compassion you have for others, right? So that's on your personal sphere of influence. And what I'll say also is, then after you take care of yourself, then think about what kind of peer group, what kind of trusted advisors you have to really help you stay connected in this way. I think the podcast that we're doing right now is a perfect example of that. How do you actually find grounding and solace, a good source of information to really help you navigate this water of uncertainties at this time? I think these are all good places, kind of like different stages that you can lay out.
Well, from my perspective, I think it's more like watching the process of thinking through it more than it is coming the answers. I mean, my personal answers of how I'm going to get through this and how I get the other side is going to differ from yours or someone else's, depending on our skills and gifts and what have you. But so as I was taking my daily walk today, as as much as we're stuck inside, I make it a point at least to do a 30-minute walk a day. As you know, I used to do the swimming every day, and it's been, what is it, like 3 weeks since I last swam, which is It's very difficult. I shudder to think what happens when I get back in the pool. My lung capacity is completely gone, but I do try and walk. Anyway, so one thing as I was watching around, I'm thinking back, you know, my parents were a little older when they had me. And so I got to know a lot of people, a lot of their friends in their generation. And they were so shaped by, you know, so much of their friends. You know, as you know, my parents, my dad was, my mom is a Holocaust survivor, and they had a lot of friends. I remember as a little kid, I went to the barber who was a friend. You know, they were family friends, and you know, he had a tattoo on his forearm, and I didn't know what that was. And he says, "Yes, the Nazis tattooed me when it happened." Um, and then, you know, later in my life, I went to a group called the Second Generation, which was made up of second generation of Holocaust survivors. And there were so many idiosyncrasies that happened. Like I thought that was just peculiar to my parents. There were just certain weird things they did. And I know you're going to ask me, you know, of a specific example or what have you, but a lot of
It will
it,
be an example.
something around the way they looked at religious practice, the way that they looked. So my dad died at 87. My mom is still alive at 92. And I remember my dad, when I was in high school, he took us on a vacation to Los Angeles. I grew up in, you know, so when I first came here, every time I passed by what was the name of that hotel? But it's in, I'm going to think it's right near it's the Beverly Hilton, right? Every time I pass by it, you know, I think of my dad and I think of my first vacation there. And you know, my dad was doing all right at the time, but he splurged and he wanted to be in a, you know, like normally we might have gone to a Holiday Inn, but he wanted to go to the Hilton because he was already making memories. And I remember we're going down the elevator and my dad would say to me, "I don't know how long I'm going to be around, so I want you to remember me. You know, I want you to remember the good times we had." And this was I want to say late 70s, early 80s, right? So it was a long time ago. And he lived another, I don't know, 30, 40 years after that point. But a lot of it was like about making memories and about, you know, like he just thought, I don't know how long I'm going to be around, because he saw how fleeting life was and how easy, how cheap life was in a lot of ways. And there were other things around, let's say, government and politics. No matter how good and safe everybody felt, you know, like, so another thing around, let's say, my mother. So we would drive back and forth from Canada to New York to visit New York, or, you know, what have you, go to Vermont, go shopping in Vermont. And every time we crossed the border, my mom would act like it was crossing, you know, the Germany France border in 1941, as opposed to, you know, Canada, US in the 80s. And it was just like, be really careful what you say. And it was just like, we were Canadian citizens. Everyone, it was fine to shop. We could tell them exactly what we're doing. We're going to buy, you know, produce in Plattsburgh, or we're going to go visit our friends in New York. It's like, okay, cool, go knock yourself out. But for my mom, it was like a whole thing of secrecy for her, like, you know. And to this day, every time I cross a border, I have a feeling in the pit of my stomach that's completely illogical. And I know it's illogical, but doesn't matter, right? So that's what I mean when I say there's certain ingrained things. And I thought, oh, that's my parents. But I would go and I would meet other people who were second generation, and they're like, no, yeah, me too, same thing. You know, for people who were in hiding, like my mom was, you had one set of idiosyncrasies, and people who were in concentration camp, like my dad was, another set of idiosyncrasies. You know, on my dad's side, it was very much, he was an incredible scholar, and he was very comfortable in religious life. But the way he saw religion was different than his peers that hadn't gone in concentration camp. Just God was a different thing for him. He was, you know, especially in his later years, he was very devout. but he looked at it differently than the ones that hadn't gone through the Holocaust. So I'm just using that as an example. So what was it that made me think about that? I was walking down the street, and socially distanced as people, I would walk by people. A lot of people would walk away from me. I'd walk away from them. We're keeping our distance as we should. If we keep doing this for 6 months or a year, imagine you've got young kids and what you've got to train kids, right? Kids want to run on the playground. Kids want to run and touch everything. And, like when my kids were little, I was just appalled at the thing. They would eat anything off the floor. They would, like the kinds of, they're germ collectors, right? So I just imagine having 2-year-old, 3-year-old kid now, what it and there's good parents and less good parents, and having been a parent myself, I know that you might fancy yourself to be a great parent, but when you actually come down to it, you're stressed out, it's difficult, and you're not supposed to yell at your kids, but I'm sure people are yelling at their kids, scarring them for something that 20 years from now won't make any sense. So similarly, if you've got great grandparents or grandparents that went through the Great Depression, and they back in the day, it was a thing to pay off your mortgage, right? And I remember, like to me, that would be the dream, paying off, owning a property and just not leveraging it. And in today's age, I know so many of my friends, so many people are like, well, if you own your own property, you've got to leverage it and buy something else. And that's the way you're going to make your money. I wonder going forward whether we're going to get a comeback in people who are like, no, I'm just going to burn my mortgage. Thank you very much. Just have a different kind of approach. And I think that this moment will affect the politics. But politics is just such an easy term for it. It'll affect the values of people, which it will in turn affect the politics. It's a better way of putting it. When things get real for people, it's one thing in theoretical to look at things. It's another thing to look at practical. What's practical? I've got my place. I don't have to pay rent. I really don't have to worry. All I need to make sure is that I can keep the lights on. I can keep the internet on. That's kind of one set of problems. If if you're a multimillionaire, but you're leveraged everywhere, like you're stressed out. If you have, you own your, I'm going to call it crappy little house, and you have it free and clear, you've got a lot more peace of mind than that other, highly leveraged multimillionaire. So, like, boy, I'm talking a lot. I'm not a very good host, huh?
You're doing great.
Yeah. So the point of the matter is, I see all these changes coming. What do you think is going to happen as we come out of this? What changes do you see?
Yeah, let me underline a little bit of something that you just said about your parents, and also people in the previous generation having gone through the Second World War. Beliefs are seeded or cultivated through a strong emotion and also repetition. So that's how you basically seed a belief into something. So what's happening right now is there's a lot of fear, or whatever action you take, there's a lot of emotions that happens behind it, and you hear over and over again through repetition in media, in social media, and the people around you about all these things, and actually having gone through this experience. So predictably, as you said, the value system is going to change for people having gone through, and for the globally having gone through this experience. Essentially, how do you this is an existential crisis right now. So people are thinking about how they can, what is certainty for them, what is success for them, what's meaning for them personally, and then family, and then also in terms of politics, right, globally. So I think that's very predictable. That's definitely going to happen for the people having gone through this experience. And then also who are traumatized by the experience, and then they will attach to irrationally, their behavior is going to shift. So like case in point, crossing the border for your mom, and even pass it down to you, right? There's a queasy moment when you pass through the border. Case in point to my mom, every time she sees a police officer driving by, she would say, "Police officer," and then she would like get tense. And for me, it's okay. So that's a police officer. It's not a big deal, right? But there's a visceral reaction for her when you see that. So I think going forward, how we value money, what is true freedom? Is it leverage? So when you leverage everything, is that true freedom, or is it a pile of cash, sitting in the bank? Is that freedom, or is it how you work? Is the typical 9 to 5 freedom, right? Having a high paycheck, salary freedom, or is it you can create a value anywhere you go globally, or is it having an asset of a list of uh, clients or prospective clients, like social media following, who are actually following your work, right? Going back to Kevin Kelly's 1,000 True Fans. If you have 1,000 true fans right now, you're actually at a really good space because people will actually trust you, like you, and then buy your products and services based on your recommendation.
Can you
So,
go back and explain that for those of our audience that doesn't know what you're talking about?
sure. So Kevin Kelly wrote a beautiful article, really beautifully describe the power of having 1,000 true fans. So if you just Google Kevin Kelly 1,000 true fans, then you'll actually see this for yourself. The idea here is that if you have someone, or if you have 1,000 true fans who will, the definition of a true fan is they will, they know you, like you, trust you so much that it doesn't matter what you recommend or what you put out as your product or services, they will buy it.
So it's
So
kind
when,
of like Jocko.
for you, exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, you love Jocko, right?
Yeah.
So anything you put
Tim
out,
Ferriss for you, right?
who?
Tim Ferriss.
Yeah, I'm a huge student of personal development.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of different mentors that I do follow.
Yeah. You were amazing that way. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Anyway, I interrupted you. Go ahead with you were saying.
right. So the idea is actually accumulate or cultivate your relationships with 1,000 true fans, such that that's how you can, from my point of view, bulletproof yourself in terms of giving value to the marketplace, and bulletproof yourself of your micro economy. Yeah.
Beautiful. So maybe talk a little bit about how if you own a construction company, or if you work with your hands in some way, how would
Mm-hmm.
what would that look like?
Yeah. But before I get into the external, I want to talk about the internal first. I think that's super important because, and when I say internal, it means manage your own mind, manage your own psychology during uncertainties.
Sure.
Because if you jump right into, I'm in panic mode, I'm in overwhelm mode, my hair is on fire, my family needs to cash flow, my business is about to shut down, and let me just jump right into anything. That's like grasping for straws when you're drowning, right?
Sure.
And from my point of view, making a decision that way is actually counterproductive. Because the fruit that all your actions will bear, it's now seeded in panic and overwhelm. So from my point of view, managing your mind during this uncertain time, during panic or overwhelm, is first and foremost, such that you can make the best decisions going forward.
Yep.
So, we can go deep there.
So
But in terms,
what you're saying around that is that if you buy into the 1,000 fans as a strategy, that doesn't mean go ahead and find 1,000 fans into anything. Really, what you're talking about is be authentically great at what you're authentically great at, and then pay attention to give really good, whether it's customer service or something high in quality, and then then people really appreciate the quality or whatever it is that you put out, and then they basically invest in you. So if we have friends who are horticulturists, we have others that do restorations, we have others that are in the healthcare. So if you are an acupuncturist, just make your customers really happy, make your clients really happy, and do good work, and then people will be fans of whatever it is you do. So when you recommend, you've got a new gadget that's going to help them with their well-being, they're more likely to trust you. If you're an amazing doctor and someone tells you, yeah, I know it seems stupid, but don't touch your face, and here's why, then they trust you, and you got your 1,000 fans. I think that's where you're headed with this. Yes.
Yeah, let me actually break it down a little bit, because I feel like we're jumping around a little bit. So
Yeah.
what I'm saying is phase one. So let me actually backtrack. So in any kind of transition, and we're going through a transition right now, there are three phases: the finish of the old identity, the in-between space, and also the beginning of a new identity, right? So in finishing up the old identity, it's easy for us to get overwhelmed, to get into panic, to resist what's happening, right? So 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, that's probably what's happening right now. You see the hoarding of the toilet papers and things like that, or trying to survive, right? So that's a symptom of this finishing up the old identity. And there's now we're hearing a lot of people say, I'm bored, I don't know what to do, I have all this free time, I'm exploring new ways to use my free time. So now you're kind of in this in-between space. You have yet to find what's next for you yet, but you're exploring in this in-between space. Okay, so this is great. So let's see where I'm going with this. Let me actually finish the new beginning, then I can jump back into the in-between space. Okay, so once you find a new direction, then you can really double down and really go out and execute, because now you have a new direction, a new mission, new purpose in what you want to do, right? In resoluteness, in ferocity, in intensity, just kind of go forward. And it doesn't matter what everyone else is around you saying, you can go out and execute with the confidence, right? So that's the three different stages. What I was saying, the in-between space when you're still searching is this. First, take an inventory of what your core competencies are. So throw out all the identities. You use a doctor example, right? Throw out all of the identities, throw out the label doctor, and just take an honest look of what your core competencies are. Because you may be a doctor, you may be able to heal, but you're not the same as the doctor 2 blocks from you, right? So there's something unique that you bring to the table that your patients love you for whatever reason, right? So take a good inventory on the qualitative and the quantitative competencies that you have. And also take an honest inventory of what the potential opportunities are. What the trend is, what your people needs are, and then and see how you can repackage this. The way tactically I would say to people who are going through this transition right now is take an inventory look of what your core competencies are, and then get in touch with your VIP, your best clients, and then ask them how they're doing, how you can provide help for them. Giving that input of both internal and external input, then see how you can reorientate yourself to repackage your product and services accordingly that way. I think and the faster you can do this, the faster you can then reinvent, reorient yourself, giving this new environment that's happening.
That's really interesting. So I know that one of the things that you do for people is you help them get clarity about what they're passionate about, and for people that are trying to figure out where they're going, you're really good at that. So is that something you're offering in terms of a transition where people are, if someone's at home, which most people are at this point, they have a chance to take stock in their lives, do you have a program like that?
I do. So I help entrepreneurs and business owners to think about what is the best action to take given in a macro environment, right? So if you're looking to see how you can best, number one, make the best, do everything you can to make the best decision possible given this time, and then also think about how, looking ahead, how you can exploit these new trends and new opportunities and to reinvent your business. Definitely reach out to me. But I will say is this, for people that are still sorting this out, I have a free resource that you can go and download. It's if you go to cklin.com/certainty. There's some protocols that I share with you to really just calm the nervous system, to prepare yourself physiologically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, to make the best decisions possible.
Okay. So, so what I hear you saying is that the world's going to look a little different based upon our shared experience. And maybe I'm putting words in your mouth, but we may wish we had this extra time to prepare and adjust for what comes on the other side when we're going to have to hit the ground running. So while we have the time, budget some of the time between binging on different pieces of Netflix and what have you, to really do some thinking about what it is you want to do on the other side and how you can best prepare yourself to be effective in the world to come. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I have an analogy for you. Let's use deliciousness and nutritiousness as an analogy. For some of you who is feeling boredom, who is feeling unfulfilled, you don't really know how to deal with all this extra time and bandwidth in your life right now. So you may be indulging yourself on your personal vice. So maybe Netflix, maybe chocolate, maybe ice cream, whatever it may be for you. So that's seeking deliciousness, right? But ultimately, deliciousness is as good as they taste. In my case, it's sweets. I love sweets.
Which ones?
Any sweets. Yeah,
I have. I got something specific. If you're really jonesing for something, what would it be?
So these days, I shop at a Persian store. So they have these chickpea cookies. I just anytime I feel a little bit more stress or whatever, I just kind of have a lot of them. So I notice I go through boxes of these chickpea cookies pretty frequently.
No, I get you. I wanted to make it real because you're one of the people that's that I know is just in peak physical condition. So it's hard for me to imagine you chowing down on something. But
oh, thank you.
There you go. So yeah. Okay, if I'm visiting and I see the chickpea cookies half eaten, then I know to ask you what's going on, CK.
Right, you see empty boxes of chickpea cookies, then you know what.
It's a CK cry for help. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a symptom.
Okay, so your analogy is around. So so when you're binging the Netflix, you're looking for deliciousness,
right?
But tactically, you should be. What is the nutrition and balance?
Well, it's not. It should be, but just I want people to pay attention to whether or not the deepest desires being fulfilled by watching Netflix. If you are skipping through the channels and different shows trying to find something, chances are that's not really what you're looking for, right? There's a deeper yearning for something more fulfilling. And to your point earlier, I believe now is the time, as we all go through this existential crises, existential challenge. This is the time to actually use the space to ask yourself the question, what makes my life meaningful? What does success mean for me? Is it a bunch of cash in the bank? Is it a bunch of houses all over the place? Is it the kind of lifestyle I want to have? Balancing between family and professional and, and service and contribution, right? What truly means success for you? And once you have internal clarity there, then you can design your job, your business according to your own criteria. Because the last thing that I believe you want is determining your own definition of success based on what other people think you should do. Your parents, society, your spouse, your kids, right? Because ultimately, you know this to be true as well, is if you live your life that way, you may climb that mountain and get to the top and feel a little moments of excitement and accomplishment. And then the immediate moment after that would be, I didn't feel as good as I thought I would feel. Oh, you know, maybe I was climbing the wrong mountain. I should have climbed another mountain that makes my life meaningful, my life purposeful. So that's the way I feel. Now is the time to actually to ask those questions during this downtime that we have.
Yeah, it's very good. I certainly achieved everything I wanted to in life by the time I was 42, and wasn't actually happy when I achieved any of those goals. So I know it well.
Can you actually describe that for the
Sure.
people who, because you have gone through it. Some people may be going through it right now. And
Sure.
some people may not have been through it. So like, I don't know what you guys are talking about here. I just want a bunch of money, right? So describe on the emotional level, describe on the physical level. If I were to watch your life on a movie, what would I see you, go through?
So, when I was a teenager, I said I wanted to be married with kids in my own home by the time I was, so I wanted to have my own home by the time I was 25. I wanted to be married with kids by the time I was 30. I wanted to be on a business level. I wanted to be a director by the age of 30, VP by the age of 35, CEO by the age of 45, and what have you. And, I hit all those things. But it's not about being married and having kids. It's about being married to the right person. And I just assumed that that would happen. It never occurred to me, that I could get divorced. It never occurred to me that, so I'd have everything I want, but what I wanted, I just assumed it meant I'd be happy and things would go good. But my life didn't look like that at all. And, on a career path, I remember one of my mentors, the late great Steve Gladashevsky, he said to me, I was a project manager for a really exciting multi-million-dollar project. This was at Capitol EMI, which was, Capitol Records, and was the worldwide holding company that had the Beatles, the Beach Boys, Frank Sinatra, anybody you could imagine. And I was part of a big project that was building a repertoire management and contract tracking system. And so, just what that means now, everyone can see, you can type into your computer or your phone that you want to listen to a particular song, and you'd have it on Spotify or Apple or Pandora or what have you. But I was working for the record company, when actually, right when CDs was the new technology, let alone, being able to listen to it on your computer. And all the data, or the data that we had on music, was in mainframes, and there was just no way, even within the company, to necessarily plug in a song and find out who the singer is and who the composer is and who all the artists were that did that. A lot of that stuff was on paper. So we were writing systems to make sure that we would capture all the contract information, right? So right now, if you come up with a song, you write a song and you have a performance, there are systems that can capture that. But we had this huge catalog, and we didn't have the repertoire, which is the metadata about the music. We didn't have the contract information on all that. So I was part of building that system. Originally, I was the business analyst on the contract side. Then I got promoted to be the project manager on the contract side, then eventually the project manager for both the contract and the repertoire side. I don't know how I'm able to make a a project that interesting sound boring, but trust me, it was a lot of fun. I got to fly to London, to Nashville, Canada, New York, Los Angeles, Germany, and figure out what kind of, what kind of needs they had. If you want to capture information about classical music, it's a whole different ball game than capturing pop. So if you want to know, I don't know, the latest Britney Spears song, Britney Spears is the most important part of it. But if you want to capture something that's important around classical music, the composer matters much more. You want to know whether it's Mozart's 40th rather than, the London Symphony Orchestra. You want to, so it's different focus, and there's different things you're capturing about it. Anyway, long story, but my mentor Steve was saying, because I was a hard charging, I wanted to be an executive, I wanted to do this thing, and I was project managing this thing, and I was still defining the requirements, and you're sitting there and you're trying to figure out what are the data elements you need, how can we make sure that when someone over in Germany is ordering this information or wants to know what they can do with it, or they're trying to do tour information, and how do we make sure all the systems get what they need so that we can give the music to the people. That was a lot of fun. And he was the VP, and he's like, Martin, you're doing the last fun job you're ever going to have, so enjoy it. And I'm like, are you crazy? Like, being a VP is much better than being a project manager. But a few years later, I was a VP. And what was I doing instead of figuring all that stuff out? I was sitting with finance, arguing about the budget for, yes, I would spend time with my team figuring out, we need this system or that system, and how does the data all work together. But for every hour doing that, I had 10 hours of administration. And what that looked like was, two of the people on your team were improperly having a liaison, and they were married to other people, and became an HR issue, and what we're allowed to do, what we're not allowed to do, and someone's doing something stupid, or this other person was found with porn on their machine, and like, there's endless hours of stuff you're dealing with that level of issue. And the whole idea that got you involved in this is architecting these systems that will allow you to bring music to the people. I got further and further away from that, even as my offices got nicer and nicer, and my compensation got better and better. Steve was right, God bless him. I had a lot more fun being the project manager.
So let me ask you a quick interjection there. Is it because you stayed away from your zone of genius, stay away from what you actually enjoy tactically doing? Is it because of that, or is it because of,
Well, it depends on what you mean by my zone of genius. I was pretty good at the administrative bullshit. I was good at justifying contracts and getting the money for it. I was good at HR issues and dealing with people and what have you. So I wouldn't say that the genius so much as I wasn't cognizant of where the fun was, and I wasn't cognizant of shaping my career so that I made so where the money was coming from was aligned with what I enjoyed doing, because it wasn't even an issue. I sort of fell into it. I was like, you're good at something, they promote you. It wasn't like, it wasn't.
So you didn't have that internal awareness of what you actually enjoy doing. You just follow what you're good at, where the money is going, and then you just going down that direction, versus the Venn diagram of all three: what you're good at, what you enjoy doing, and what you're being compensated for.
Sure. And at the same time, the thing that's happening is, two little babies at home that need to be fed. I have a house, like, I was living in a condo that I owned, but we thought we needed more space. It was plenty of space, but from another perspective, we need more. I was married to somebody that was not enjoying the marriage, and she wanted one thing when she married me, but it was no longer, it's an old story, right? The life that we were living wasn't the one that she was interested in. So I wouldn't say that I had time to sit and think about what was making me happy. I had to make money, and it was more reacting. I didn't have the tools back then that I have now to kind of stop the action. And
So quick interjection. So is hindsight 2020? Do you believe that because you have gone through a period of unfulfillment, period of dissatisfaction, period of I'm not happy doing what I'm doing, right? This is not something that I enjoy. Now, so you can now go back and say, don't do that, right? To someone who haven't gone through it. Or do you believe that you have to go through a period of dissatisfaction and unfulfillment to find that truth for yourself?
honestly, I think it's a combination thereof. If you don't go through some hardship, you just won't. How many people have you given advice to that they hear what you're saying, uh, but they don't really get it until, like I have a lot of friends that have one conception of what marriage is going to look like, and then they get married and they see, yes, it's very different, so I think from that perspective, same thing with having kids. Yes, enjoy the kids while they're young because teenagers aren't as fun. Okay, well, you can tell somebody that, but until you actually have your own teenager, you don't quite understand what that looks like. And then enjoying the time for what it is. I mean, everyone tells you that time flies, but until you get on the other side of 50, you don't realize how much time really does fly, and how you really better make the most of the experiences. So I don't know if I've answered your question, but I think it comes down to you have to go through some level of pain to where you become interested in learning from other people's mistakes instead of learning from your own. And once you flip that switch, that's when you can learn.
And that's the reason why I wanted to emphasize to people who are listening to this My Corona podcast, is that on the one hand, it's painful to go through this, to do the to do the social distancing, to have your whole world essentially, being flipped upside down. You got to stay at home, your jobs, your business, your social connections, all of it is, you can't travel, you can't do the things you like to do, vacation or going to conferences, festivals, whatever, all these things out the window, right? Painful. So I don't want to dismiss that. And the blessing, if you're willing to look at it as a blessing, is on the other side of it. How can you grow from all of this pain that's inflicting upon you right now? How can you find peace? How can you redefine what your sense of peace and freedom and happiness and fulfillment come from? So that's the thing I wanted to underline. It's an important part to self-reflect given this moment.
For sure. So tell me, how does the science part of your brain interact with this side of it? I mean, how much does what you know about biology shape how you're reacting to the virus?
Yeah, that's a really good point. So in the beginning part of it, I actually didn't take it as seriously as I could have. I was actually in China during the Wuhan breakout during that time. And I just didn't understand what's the big deal, right? It wasn't until very recently I listened to the scientist who went on Joe Rogan's podcast. He underlined the danger isn't the symptoms themselves. The danger is how fast these things could spread, and then how it could overwhelm the hospital system. So those are some of the points that he emphasized. So out of civic duty, it is my responsibility as a young, healthy person to actually participate in doing this. And so that actually just woke me up to like, okay, so this is not something for me to,
Brush off.
brush off. Exactly. So the science aspect of it, I would say, is this. I look at data now more than before, more actively than before. And at the same time, also, the scientist in me know that all data sources whatever you're being presented on media, social media from other people, you need to question the validity of the data point as well. So you can't just take it wholesale and say, so-and-so said this, CDC said this, so therefore I'm gonna wholesale take it everything. So it's a yin-yang relationship I have with the data being presented as the data received, and also how I can make the best decision based on imperfect data sets that I have.
So do you find yourself just looking at the statistics every day?
I don't actually. No, that's a really, really good point. So the way I look at this is first, I find what's important for me, as we talked about earlier, the self-reflection aspect of it, right? What's really important for me right now? What's my short-term goal? And then how do I reinvent myself, reinvent my identity, reinvent my core competencies in service of others, right? That's on the internal side of things. On the external side of things, what data points are valid that I trust, that I can bring into my overall equations of how I make decisions, right?
Do you
The
wear a
way
mask when you go outside?
I do. I would say in an open area, I don't, but in an enclosed area, I do.
Okay. So
Right. Yeah. What was I? Oh, right. The data. Do I look at data all day? I don't, because I also spiritually believe that we expand what we focus on. If I focus on the paranoia of this virus, then my mind would be preoccupied with paranoia. And I don't want to do that. I want to, have a good balance between creation and also data gathering at the same time.
Okay. So, but on a practical level, so what do you do that's informed from your science? So you wear a mask. What do you have a schedule as far as the shopping goes, or schedule about like what you will or won't do? And is there anything different that you do than what anyone else is doing?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what everyone else is doing. I talk to a variety of people. I think people all do different things, so I don't think there's a one size fits all approach. So I'll share what I do. I prepare for the worst case scenario. I do have some survival kits and things like that as a way to just being prepared for myself. At the same time, once I have that, then I would just focus on living my life on a regular basis. So I don't actually stock up on the groceries or any of those things. And a lot of the survivalist people will stock on. I just shop as I need to, and I go outside, have some precautions, some safety precautions. I do wear a face mask. I do more frequently be cognizant about whether or not I touch my face. I wash my hands more often, and I do practice the social distancing thing. Because ultimately, the way I look at this entire thing, it's a game of probabilistic outcomes, right? What is the probability that I can maximize or optimize my personal safety as well as the safety of others on the short term, on the medium term, on the long term? So that's the way I look at all of this.
How are you doing toilet paper wise?
Just regular, 6 rolls. So it's nothing super crazy.
Are you part of Bidet Nation?
I did get a travel bidet as well. Yes.
So you're okay in the worst case scenario.
Exactly.
That's half my mission in this podcast is to get everyone on Bidet Nation so that there's enough toilet paper for everyone else.
Yeah, I mean, if you're thinking about what extra income you can make, I think creating an Amazon store around bidets is a really good trend right now.
Oh, there you go. The My Corona bidet. Maybe I can get something co-branded with someone. If you're a bidet maker out there,
I think you should.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think you should.
Beautiful. So any recommendations you have for people beyond what you said so far?
if you're listening still right now, I would say this: different stages, right? First thing, do everything that you can to to ground yourself, to calm your mind. Because without being calm, without being equanimous, without being center, any decisions that you make is not going to be the most optimal one. So first thing first. And once you find yourself to be relatively calm and stable and center and at peace, then explore new ways of repackaging your core competencies right now. I think now is the time where if you just want to go super radical, people won't question you because everyone is doing something, that everyone's pivoting, everyone's repackaging their goods and services right now. So if you've ever wanted to try something but never had the courage to do it because of some external judgments of others, now is the time to actually do that exploration. And if part of that exploration is doing nothing, that's totally fine too, because that's another way to explore new things, right? And then after you do that, then it's being resolute, go out and then build your social connections. Be a leader, lead your employees, lead your family in ways that only you can. And then cultivate your relationships with your key clients, cultivate relationship with your peers, right? All of these is going to have multiplying effects on what you could do to reinvent your business, reinvent your career, reinvent yourself after all of this is over. And then you can then look back and say, wow, this was a real blessing, real opportunity amidst all of these challenging times. Right now, it's not pleasant to go through it, but if you think that all of the biggest challenges, the biggest crisis that you face, you can look back fondly and say, I've grown so much because I've dealt with all of that. So I'm sure in due time, few months and, hopefully a few months from now, you can look back on this and say, wow, this has been a huge blessing in disguise.
Beautiful. So again, if you want to be involved in CommunityStrong, what should you do?
Yeah. So if you just go to Facebook and type in CommunityStrong, one delivery, one person, one community at a time, you'll see that we're one of the groups there. So definitely be involved there. We're right now focusing on the Southern California area. And then we'll expand out accordingly. And if you're interested in really figuring out ways to calm yourself during this uncertain times, such that you can make the best decisions possible, go to cklin.com/certainty. You can find more information there too.
Awesome. Thank you, CK. Anything else you want to share before we go?
No, it's been really fun doing this with you, my friend. I think, I think people need to hear different perspectives and they want to participate in discussion amongst intelligent people such that they can actually formulate better decisions for themselves, for the family, for their business. So thank you for everything that you do.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on. This has been a really fun conversation. Until next time.
All right.
All right.